Welcome to the Automotive Diagnostic Podcast. We're going to explore ways to sharpen our diagnostic skills, find learning resources, and hear from experts in the automotive field.
Okay, hello and welcome, automotive world. This is the Automotive Diagnostic Podcast. My name is Sean Tipping. I'll be your host today. Today I have a special guest that I'm going to chat with, Cody Gaddie. Cody is an L1 Master Technician. He lives in Tucson, Arizona, and you can find Cody on his YouTube channel, Cody's Auto Diagnostics. You can also find him on the same name on a Facebook page, Cody's Auto Diagnostics. Cody makes and sells pulse sensors that can be used with automotive scopes. And today we're going to talk about a little bit how he makes these sensors and what they can be used for. I'm really excited to have him here today. So let's get into the interview.
Yeah, first want to thank you for coming on and chatting with me for a while. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah. I've been kind of slacking on getting people on for interviews. I've actually been really busy lately, trying to get all my classes online and trying to do a little bit of work on the side. But yeah, I'm going to try to reach out to more and more people here and get some other people on the podcast.
Oh yeah, I think this podcast is just absolutely awesome, man. I mean, it's just such a brilliant idea, and I really enjoy sitting at work and everything and listening. So it's pretty cool.
Thank you. It's one of those things where I really like podcasts because I can listen and do something else. I can, work on a car or clean my house or whatever. It's kind of ups that productivity. And there just wasn't one out there specifically for what I was looking for, which, automotive diagnostics. So I was like, well, I guess I'll be the one to start it. We'll see how this goes. So,
hey, it's got to start somewhere. And, I appreciate
right.
you putting it out. And like you said, being at work and working on cars and stuff and listening to the podcast, like, remarkable results. And then your podcast and everything. It's cool because you can learn while you're working. It's nonstop, education, which is just, it's awesome. So,
yeah, you have those kind of, I wouldn't say mindless tasks, but there are some of those where it's just your hands are on autopilot and you can let your brain learn something else. So we'll just talk a little bit about you for anyone listening. You're working at Borst Automotive.
Yep, correct. Borst Automotive in Tucson, Arizona.
Tucson, awesome. I got some family that lives up in Phoenix, a little bit north of you. I haven't been out there in quite a while, but definitely a nice area. My mom grew up in Scottsdale, just north of there as well. So how long have you been at Borst?
I actually just started with Borst the beginning of this year, 2020. So before that, I was with another company, and I was with them for close to 14 years, and decided to move on to better things, I guess, more advancement. I felt like I was kind of tapped out where I was at the shop. And I just want to continue to push myself farther and learn as much as I can in this industry,
Yeah, it's important thing, to be able to recognize that there's a better opportunity out there. I spent a lot of time when I was younger, not realizing that, there's a better spot than where I'm at. You might be at a place where like you said, you're limited, and just being able to recognize that and look for those opportunities is huge. So you like where you're at right now?
Yeah, I really do. I mean, they take care of the employees, number one, the customers come number two. And, it's nice to be recognized for your efforts and hard work and everything else. So, it's just something that I felt I was lacking at my other shop. And they treated me great. Obviously I was there for 14 years and stuff, but I needed to help myself grow and see what else is out there instead of just being stuck in the same thing. And it's been a good learning curve, so I like the shop because they do the digital video inspections, and they're really trying to stay on the cutting edge and the changes with all this technology and the automotive industry. So
Awesome. And independent shop, they work on pretty much anything that comes in.
Yep, exactly. There's 2 locations here in Tucson, and then there's 2 locations up in Phoenix. So they just opened up the 2 locations in Phoenix the beginning of this year, and so they're wanting to expand and get more shops under their belt, and just put out good service. So it's what it's all about.
Awesome. Well, how's workflow? How's business with the craziness that's going on in the world right now?
It's we've seen some weird days, some slower days. Obviously it affected business, but there's enough work for us to stay busy and to make our hours. And, it hasn't affected us too much as a whole. We haven't changed hours. We haven't furloughed any techs, which has been a good thing, especially with me being kind of like the new guy coming in, low man on the totem pole kind of thing. And,
Sure.
and I could have been one of the first to let go, and seeing so many guys out there going through these rough times, and it's hard, man. So work has been good. It's been steady. It's nothing to write home about, but it's nice to be able to get out of the house and be able to go to work every day.
Yeah, no kidding. My wife's laid off at the moment, still like a lot of people, and I know she's going stir crazy at home. So I feel very lucky that I get to go out and do something. It's huge. It's very strange. I've seen some shops, like you said, that are just, they keep rolling along. There's a couple that I go to that are actually slammed somehow. I don't know exactly what they're doing differently, but then flip side too, there's some places that are really, really slow, laying people off. I go in, maybe to a program, a control module, and that's the only vehicle in the shop sitting there. And so I feel really bad for, business owners and the techs in those situations. So hopefully life gets back to normal here soon. They just extended our stay at home until the 18th. I'm not sure. What do they have in Arizona for that?
They just extended ours until the 15th. So
Okay.
we'll see more after that. And like you said, my wife has, she's been painting rooms. She's been building benches. She's little, she's Bob the Builder right now. She is just, but she's going stir crazy as well. So, I feel bad for her, and it's hard not to, feel guilty every time I go to work.
Yeah.
See you later.
Well, mine came home with a brand new puppy last week, so that's the level she got to. So that's keeping her busy for the last few days, anyways.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, hey, one of the reasons I really wanted to talk to you was about your pulse sensors. I actually just got one in the mail the other day. I haven't had a chance to use it yet, but you create and sell these pulse sensors. But let's, if you would explain to anyone listening who's not familiar with what a pulse sensor is, can you explain what that does, what it's used for?
Yeah. So it's, so a pulse sensor, it changes in pressure. So you can use this. It's just a piezo disc inside of a housing, and it responds to changes in negative or positive pressure. And you can use this inside the intake to see, mechanical health of an engine. You can use it inside of an exhaust with an overlay program. I've also used this in the dipstick to see, cylinder blow by or piston blow by. I've seen guys use them in the cooling system. Well, I've used them in the cooling systems as well to see blown head gaskets. What else? There's all kinds of things that you can do with this sensor, and you're learning new things every day. Like Hans Jorgensen, he posted how you can actually see noise with this sensor, putting a stethoscope end on it, and to put it on wheel bearings and to see the difference between the right side wheel bearing or the left side. And it's pretty remarkable stuff. And I'm not the best at education on the sensor. There's much better guys out there better to explain, everything that it does, or how to diagnose and stuff with it. Brandon Steckler has an amazing class on using these sensors in cylinder and everything as well. And, I created these sensors because when I first started getting into scopes and stuff, I'd go to these classes and I'd hear about these sensors. And when I'm getting into scopes, there's so much money there's so much money for an investment and education and everything that, I didn't have the $400 on top of buying my scope and everything to buy a first look sensor or these real name brand pieces of equipment. So, but I wanted to learn. And so I, figured out how to make these sensors and everything else. And there's some other guys and stuff making them that, I didn't realize until starting to join these Facebook groups and everything else that, there's really guys trying to give back to other technicians out there and give them a quality product at a cheaper price than paying, full market on another piece of equipment. It's been fun. And the main reason I started doing it, like I said, is just to help guys out. I never expected it to, go anywhere from there, but it's been awesome to network and meet guys and talk to guys like yourself and to see them sending in screenshots of vehicles that they've diagnosed and using the sensor and stuff, and it's rewarding. It's fun.
Yeah, that's really cool. As just your average auto technician occasionally will make a hand tool, or something, weld some things together for a specific purpose. But I've never really thought of making my own diagnostic equipment, and so, well, I got to go figure out and go see who sells it in order to start using one. But that's really cool to make one. Now, obviously you don't have to give away the secret sauce here, but how do you make one of these things? What do you start with?
I mean, there's a bunch of different ways to make these. I mean, there's some good videos out there on actually YouTube and stuff, and anyone can make these. It's not anything that you need to. I'm sitting here saying you need to go out and buy mine, because that's not the case. It's just a piezo disc, which is essentially, I mean, it's a guitar pickup, and it's put inside of a housing, and it is that piezo creates its own voltage. So it's a 2-wire, little disc that you wire up and put into a housing and everything. And I shouldn't say that there's more involved in that. That's pretty much what it is.
So it's just producing a voltage based on vibrations.
Exactly. So,
okay.
So just with having having it hooked up to a scope and everything, and just tapping it, let's say you're tapping the end of the sensor onto something, it's creating its own voltage. So it's something that you also want to, it's very sensitive. So it just moving around and everything, it's putting out a signal, a very, very low signal, but it's creating its own signal. And, with those signals and stuff, it's kind of like Sesame Street Diagnostics. So that's what Brandon Steckler says. So I got to quote him, and it's just it's finding the odd man out. What doesn't look like the other, so if you're putting it in a dipstick tube and you're seeing nice, up and down peaks and valleys and everything, and then you see an odd man out, what's going on? There's something going on there that one's not like the other. And the same goes true with having it in the intake or into the exhaust. And every day it's learning something new that you can do with this tool. So it's pretty darn cool. I mean, there's really knowledgeable guys out there doing some great things with these things.
Yeah, you mentioned Hans, and he's definitely, showing some creative ways to use these sensors, like you said, wheel bearings and just vibrations from components, not necessarily a pressure, but these can be used to measure the pressure. So we'd be looking at, the mechanical aspects of an engine, like the intake pulses or the exhaust pulses. What are we looking for exactly? Not specific in a waveform, but what are we looking for when we have it hooked up to an engine like that? What are you gonna see with this sensor?
So if you're doing like a relative compression test, this would be a good tool to use in conjunction with it. So to have 2 channels, and if you have it inside the intake and you're doing a relative compression test, you can see, valve sealing from the intake valves. You can see, the intake pulls of each cylinder. And, from there, it's like I said, finding that odd man out. And that's where, the education comes in and stuff, but it's just, it's pretty cool. What else can you see with it?
You mentioned head gasket. Where are you connecting it for that?
So what I do, I use, I take my mechanical gauge off my coolant pressure tester, and I attach the pulse sensor to that hose, and I suspend it from, the hood latch or whatever. And then you crank the engine, you do a relative compression, or this is how I've done it in the past, do a relative compression test with a sink. So with like an ignition sink on it, and you're going to see a little bit of variations, a little bit of up and down and stuff, because you're seeing the water pump impeller actually rotating. But if you're seeing, large peaks, like large pressure peaks, then that's time to, for investigation. Something's causing that pressure to rise more than the rest of the waveform. So
Okay.
what's causing that? Is that combustion gases getting into the cooling system? So it's a quick and easy way to diagnose a head gasket. And I think we've all been there as technicians, to where, you have that head gasket that's just, it's intermittent. Sometimes it's easy to, and I had one that would overheat every like 3 months, and you're looking at thermostats or air in the system, or there's so much. Nope, it was a head gasket that would leak every once in a while. So having this tool, it's a non-intrusive way of diagnosing a head gasket, just kind of with a modern technology. And what's cool about it, you can take a screenshot of the capture and everything and print it up and kind of show the customer, like, hey, look, this is our testing results, and this is kind of what's going on. And obviously you have to explain the waveform and everything to them, but it shows it right there, gives that peace of mind.
It's data that you can put to somebody. You mentioned the digital inspections, and you can include that in there. That's huge for a customer, rather than just taking your word for it. Yeah, I can think of a lot of times in my career where you have a small head gasket leak. Obviously, if it's a big leak, it's overheating and spraying coolant everywhere. You might not need one of these, but a really small one where it doesn't overheat all the time, you're kind of okay. It's going through a little bit of coolant, and all you've got, or at least all I had at the time, was the blue fluid that you put on top of there, and you suck it up and you hope it changes color. If it changes color, you got a head gasket. But if it doesn't change color, well, you still might have a head gasket. So having another way to look at that sort of thing is awesome.
You're absolutely right. And I've never had good luck with that fluid. I mean, me being colorblind, that doesn't help, but, but on that same note, I mean, like you said, you hope that you catch it at that time that, the fluid will change colors and stuff. So I've spent probably more time diagnosing head gaskets, kind of going down rabbit holes and everything else. So having, one more test in the arsenal, in the toolbox and everything, to help get to the conclusion faster is what it's all about, especially being, a flat rate technician. So,
well, and if I remember correctly, it was Brandon Steckler that has a video out there where he did that test where the pulse sensor is connected to the cooling system. He's looking for a suspected head gasket leak. He was able to pinpoint not only that there was a head gasket leak, but what cylinder it was on as well, which is pretty cool too.
That is awesome. And putting that sync in there, going off of whatever cylinder that you have it triggered on one of your channels, you can sit there and count the firing order and everything else and see what cylinder is coming up on compression and see where that peak is coming. So you can really narrow it down to specifically which cylinder it is, just in a matter of minutes with hookup. I mean, it takes, probably 10 minutes to hook everything up and to get the results from a head gasket with nothing disassembled, non-intrusive way. So.
Yeah. Great thing about scoping in general is, generally speaking, it's going to be non-intrusive or low intrusive to these systems. You don't have to take anything apart. Kind of on that note of scoping things and using these pulse sensors, it's I love using a scope, and I want to just put the scope on everything, and sometimes that kills my productivity, but I want to see it. And with electrical side of things, it's nice. Electrical, at least to me, it's kind of like math. Like I always know it's going to work this way, and that's just how it is.
Yeah.
I will say I do struggle with using the pressure sensors or pulse sensors in some cases, because there is a lot of variables when it comes to this, especially if you're looking at, like you mentioned, exhaust or intake pulses. And sometimes you think you see something and it's really something else, or there's another variable you didn't consider, like changing engine speed, or there's so much stuff. Now you mentioned Brandon's class or his courses that he teaches. Do you have any other suggestions or directions to point somebody who wants to learn more about this? Because I feel like if I want to use this and get really good at it, I've really got to get some education on it so I know what I'm doing. It's tough to just hook it up and know what's going on.
No, and I hear that. So yeah, Brandon's is a great class. I went to his class at Super Saturday. The drawback of going to Brandon's class at Super Saturday, it was only a 4-hour class. And Brandon is just so knowledgeable and everything else that you can't fit all this information in just a 4-hour class. So it was really condensed down, and we left the class like just wanting more and more and more, like just keep giving it to us, So I definitely need to attend Brandon's class again and do the full 8-hour class. But as far as for like free training and stuff out there, Super Mario has some great videos using this, like on a Chevy Suburban. We're talking about the head gasket. He also has watching valve issues, I think, on a Mustang. He's got multiple videos out there that, look him up, check his videos out and stuff. Trained by Techs, Richard Falco has a video out just kind of explaining it. He's not really getting into the diagnostic part of it, but it's showing kind of what this tool can do and showing the waveforms and giving you kind of a basic understanding of what this sensor does. So there is, the free education and stuff out there. But like I said, if you really want to dig in deep, you really need to invest in and get into some of these classes. Because like you said, I may look at something and I'll send it off to, a couple buddies and be like, what do you guys see? Are you guys seeing what I'm seeing? Or what's how do you interpret this? And then you're hearing some other guys' point of view or what they're thinking and stuff. And it really opens your eyes like, oh, I didn't think about it like that. So there is a lot of variables. And that's where it's like, if you think you know what you're doing, they're going to get that car that's going to throw you for a loop, that's going to make you question why you're even doing this.
Oh, I've been there. That's for sure. I was thinking about these types of sensors. So they're a little bit different. Just to clarify for anybody, we have a pressure sensor, and these are used on vehicles. We use these for scopes as well that actually measures a pressure. Now, these pulse sensors, they don't actually measure pressure exactly. It's measuring, what would you say, a change in pressure or the amount of change?
Yeah, it's not actually, you can't put like a pressure PSI scale to it because it's not actually measuring the physical, pressure, but it's reacting to the changes in pressure. So it's going to be different than a pressure sensor, that's going to be different, but this is, essentially it's just the changes in pressure. Not all the time do you need to see an actual pressure value. And, so each tool is going to have their own place. It just like the WPS, to be able to read, a PSI scale or a pressure scale or vacuum or whatever you may have you. That's also another tool in the toolbox that's valuable, so, having both is, you can really diagnose and dig in deep to some of these vehicles and stuff without having multiple WPSs. I mean, I don't have the money to buy multiples and just cheaper alternatives and coming up with the same results.
Yeah. And I mean, the cost of your sensor, it's a third of, for instance, like you said, the name brand ones out there. And from everything that I've seen, where people have compared sensors to each other, it's going to work just the same. They're all very sensitive to those pressure changes. I was kind of thinking about obviously we see pressure sensors on cars. You got a map sensor, fuel tank pressure sensor, whatever. I wonder if, there's an application for these types of pulse sensors on cars to be used in some way. If they'd ever do that from a manufacturer's standpoint, I don't know. I'm not an engineer by any means, and what would go into making that happen. But we see piezo sensors in knock sensors that detect a vibration. So maybe maybe they could figure out something like that. It'd be a weird code to try to diagnose, but it'd be interesting to see that on a vehicle.
Yeah, I'd be curious how the computer would interpret, interpret that.
Yeah, you have a code for a wheel bearing noise or something like that. It can detect the vibration. Some of that. So well, I guess that kind of gets into the NVH style, which I haven't really done much. I know there's a kit for Pico, but I didn't quite have the need for it. Although it definitely looks interesting, the stuff you can do with it. Do you
Yeah.
know, is that kit based off the same idea? I'm really not sure how that operates.
Essentially, I'm no expert, but obviously it's not a PZO. It's a whole different animal, but essentially it's kind of doing the same thing as like we would be checking wheel bearings and everything else. It's seeing vibrations and putting that vibration into the scope and, kind of measuring that vibration in certain areas. You can use it for the drive shaft and everything to balance the drive shafts. And that's the power with the scopes, seeing is believing kind of thing. I love grabbing the scope because I like to see the voltage over time, compared to just even a multimeter. It's hard to, if it's a fast signal or anything else, it's kind of hard to interpret that, and obviously, the multimeters are only going to pick up, an average of kind of what's going on.
Yeah, seeing that slowing time down effectively, is what that scope does for us. And like you say, yeah, Sesame Street drawing a picture for us so we can view it. I remember when I first started using a scope, how cool that was. That yeah, I can see what's happening, on that wire with those electrons. Electricity is a crazy thing if you really think about it and what's actually happening, but we can see that as a line on a graph and slow down, zoom in on a thousandth of a second and really look at the detail of what's happening on that wire. So that's why I'm so drawn to them, and I think it's really, really cool. Of course, rabbit holes and stuff like that, but yeah, that's why we're into it. We're interested in this sort of stuff and learning about that.
Absolutely.
So for anybody who wants to purchase one of these sensors, how can they contact you or find one of these sensors?
So you can find me on Facebook at Cody's Auto Diagnostics, and you can shoot me a message there, and I'd be happy to take care of you as far as that. It's not anything I have a website or anything that I'm even planning on probably having a website. I do this in my spare time just to kind of give back to the industry and give back to the guys and stuff, and just put out, a decent tool that, guys can start playing around with and start diagnosing some vehicles and stuff. And, that's the reward and everything that I get is when they send me screenshots of cars that they figured out and everything using the sensor. It's from just some silly idea, like who would have thought of putting this together, you know what I mean, as far as the first, pulse sensor and everything else, and look at what it's turned into. I mean, it's pretty darn cool. And being a part of these Facebook groups and everything else, seeing these guys and new ways of diagnosing these vehicles with these tools is just, it's impressive. So it's changing every day, it seems like.
Yeah.
Just
yeah.
like with anything else.
Right. No, it's really cool to start expanding out and growing that network, and everybody's mind, thinks about things a little differently, so they can use that tool in a way that me or you never thought would never think to use it that way. So I think that is really cool when people get creative in that aspect. And I will make sure to include all of the links in the show notes for anyone listening, as far as how to get to any of these pages or websites that we've mentioned here for the training and the tool as well. Yeah. Moving on from the sensors, I know I didn't ask you ahead of time, but do you have any recent interesting vehicles or case studies or anything like that that's top of mind?
I know we talked a couple weeks ago and stuff, and I told you I didn't. And honestly, right now, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, not anything super recent. I guess kind of going back just to the sensor, I had a Kia with a misfire code, and I think it was the 2.4 Kia that has the issues with the wrist pins. And
Sure.
Putting the sensor in the dipstick, I was able to actually see It's something I can actually send you the screenshot and everything too. I don't know if you can include that with the show notes or whatever, but you can, looking at this waveform, you can actually see the wrist pin movement in this waveform on that specific cylinder, which, I thought it was just another nail in the coffin to diagnose this vehicle without getting down and dirty and checking the internals of the engine without any disassembly. So
Yeah, that's awesome when you can do that. And yeah, seeing, physical movement in a scope pattern is always cool. I remember first time I saw a pintle hump, for a solenoid in a waveform, and I was like, that's crazy. That's something moving, and I can see it in a waveform. That's awesome.
exactly. I mean, it is the power of the scope is it's just incredible.
Well, last thing I got on my list here is, obviously we talked all about the sensors. Do you have any, I like to ask for recommendations for people listening as far as either a tool or a resource for any technician out there? And it doesn't even have to be diagnostic related. Maybe there's a ratchet you really like or something, but if you have any recommendations for training, resources, tools that you'd like people to know about, love for you to share.
Well, I mean, first off, I would say if anybody's curious about any kind of automotive training or anything, then they need to visit Train by Tech's website. So right now, obviously, with the whole COVID going on and everything else, there's been a lot of free webinars and everything, which has been awesome for the automotive industry. I think that's one good thing that's kind of come out of everything going on. I think at one point there was like 38 webinars in the month of April or something, and just free ones. So it's been fun to sit there at work and listen to these podcasts, or not podcasts, but these webinars and stuff, and to learn. But Train by Tech posts, any kind of training on their website. That would be a great resource. They also have, YouTube videos and everything else that is, again, that's more education and everything. ATG would be another place. I really enjoy going to the ATG classes. Those classes are just, I think they take it to just a high level, and they're usually a 2-day class and stuff, but their classes are pretty top notch. And I try to make a point to never miss an ATG class, even if it's doing the same class, a couple years between each other. You're going to get something out of each class, something new out of each class. So yeah, I mean, I think those would be the biggest resources. There's CTI that you'd want to check out. Obviously there's some other ones and stuff, but there's the Train by Tech's website's really going to show you what's out there. They're a group of guys that are really trying to give back to the industry, which, we should all be thankful to have guys that, really want to bring other technicians up and make everybody better, instead of holding people back and everything, that provide the training and show us what's out there and help us all, grow to be better. The cars aren't, they're not getting dumber. They're only getting smarter.
Yeah, it's us against a team of engineers that are making these things. So we got a team together as well to try to grow. Yeah, I really appreciate groups like that and people like that, and you that are just trying to share and trying to help everybody get that information out there. It's not it's not selling the industry short. We're not giving away trade secrets. It's really about helping that technician that needs the information, needs to learn. And I think everybody needs to learn in some way or another, but huge. Yeah.
Yeah.
On that note, ATG, I really like the training manuals that you get with the courses. You get a very, very detailed training manual, and it covers even more than they do in the class. So you can go home and learn even more through these books, and then you can refer to it later, a year later after the course, and really find all that information that was in there. So that I really like.
Those training manuals are like you said, I mean, they're top notch. And what's nice about them, you don't even need to attend the class and manuals. And it's pretty much like you buy these you buy the manual. It's pretty much like attending the class. You read this. I mean, it's another tool in the toolbox that you can refer to at any time. And the way that it's broke down in their content section, you can really go to specific, sections in those chapters and stuff to read about whatever, system that you're working on. Going back to the training and stuff, I also want to mention, Vision in Kansas City is another huge training event that I haven't personally been to yet. And I was planning on going this year, but then with the job move and everything else, it just didn't plan out. But I want to make it a point to go and stuff next year. A bunch of guys, that's top-notch training with top-notch instructors and the best in the business, from technicians to shop owners to trainers. They're all in one place, so you can just get this wealth of education. There's also Super Saturday in Philadelphia. That training event, I think I went this last year, and it completely changed my whole outlook on just to see so much passion and drive from so many technicians that are out there and all in one place. It just really makes you appreciate the automotive industry and what guys are really putting forth to make themselves better, taking time out of their day to go to these trainings and to fly around the country to go to these trainings. And it's pretty awesome. Then there's also TST, the big event. That's another great training. I didn't realize how much training was really out there until, getting on these Facebook groups and stuff. And I feel like I've just been hiding in a closet for so long, because I was only just seeing the local trainings. I had no idea that there's just so much out there.
I can relate exactly to that. For years, I had no idea. I had no clue that there was training like that. I figured there was some big sales conference in Vegas where they're selling tools. I think you hear of whatever the big Snap-on one is or whatever, but I had no clue until I got in with some of these groups. The local Napa training, that's what I went to. You definitely got to check out some of these. I didn't make it to Vision this year either. I was at the last one, and awesome weekend of training. I haven't been to Super Saturday yet, but I am signed up for this fall. So I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, nice.
Hopefully the country opens up by then.
I'm hoping the same thing, because I think it's, if I'm remembering, is it either 2 or 3 days this year? Do you remember?
Yeah, they're doing Friday, Saturday, and I'm actually not sure if there's classes on Sunday or not. But
Super Saturday, man. Like I said, I mean, that was it was a huge eye opener, and that was a trip that I took on my expense and everything else to go out to get this kind of training. And because like Brandon's class, for example, that class wasn't coming to Tucson. So how do I learn more about these sensors and everything else if the training is not coming to me? Well, me as a technician, I paid to invest into yourself, and if the shop's not willing to send you to trainings and stuff, save some money each month and everything, but try to make it to some of these bigger training events, because it's really going to open your eyes. And if the training's not coming to you, go to them, and come back just with a wealth of knowledge. Because like Jim Morton says, training doesn't cost, it pays. I'm quoting all these guys, but I mean, it's absolutely true. Like it's a small investment into yourself, and that's what it's all about. And and I think, and plus, you go to these events and stuff, these are technicians and trainers and stuff that want to be there. They are they want to help educate, and the technicians take their job seriously. And it's hard to work a full week, or just like the ATG classes, to work all day and then to go to training at night. Those are long days, but I look forward to those in classroom, going to these events and stuff, even though I know I'm going to be dragging the next day after getting home late and going to sleep and stuff. I come back like just refreshed and just like excited to get back to it, to put these practices to use.
Yeah, Yeah, well, that's always the worst. You're all pumped. You went to this diagnostic course, and John Thornton's talking about all this really cool stuff, and then your first car is like a brake job or an oil change or
Yeah,
something.
I know. And that's where you hope that you have the book, because I had to refer back to Brandon's book, just the other day and stuff. Got a vehicle in the shop that's got a leak in intake valve, but this is a tool that I was able to, or this was a vehicle I was able to diagnose with the pulse sensor and stuff in just a short amount of time. So, which normally would be doing, cylinder leak down tests and compression tests and this and that. And it's to come to the same conclusion at a faster rate, it's what it's all about, especially for being a flat rate technician or just even a technician in general. You don't want to spend, hours chasing your tail. You being mobile, I mean, you know all about that. Time is money, no matter what you're doing.
Yeah, and that's where you really can, do the math on the value. You use one of those techniques or the knowledge that you gained from a class, and you're like, okay, it solved this problem for me in this amount of time. I got paid X amount of dollars for that, and I paid this much for the class. You can see right away how it's going to pay for itself, how it's going to be value. You're making money going to these classes. That's the real bottom line to it, that people don't always see when they look at the initial sticker price of even, flying an hotel and the course. It's worth it, as long as you utilize it, you're passionate about it. It's definitely worth it.
If you take this industry seriously and everything else, yeah, absolutely. Going to these classes and everything else is no different than buying that socket set or that wrench set. It's another tool in the arsenal. You have the manuals to the education. I mean, that's the biggest thing. It's not all about, hanging struts and doing brake jobs. There's a whole lot more to this industry than that, and it's nice to get these problem vehicles and these vehicles that have been to 4 other shops that they couldn't get fixed, and here you're able to figure it out. And it's kind of rewarding. It's there's something to be said about it, and that comes from the training, and it's awesome. I mean, I go to these trainings and I come back and try to educate the guys in the shop of what I've learned, and the shop foreman at my location and everything now, I was going over the scope captures of that leaking intake valve and everything and showing him, and his mind's blown because he doesn't use the scopes and stuff like that, and just where the technology has come. And he's like, you're able to figure that out just by doing X, Y, and Z and hooking this up. And it's like, this is how you interpret it. This is what it's about. And here's the overlay program. And it's just kind of mind blown. Like,
yeah,
whoa,
yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
it's neat.
Yeah. The challenge of it and the diagnostic side of it. That's the only reason I'm still with this industry. If it was all hanging parts, I would have lost, it's good money, but I would have lost interest in it a long time ago. So that's what keeps me coming back every day, is that challenge.
See, and that's the same with me. I mean, it's doing brakes and everything else was fun at one point, but I'm trying, moving forward. But it's an investment to get into the diagnostics, and it's an investment into yourself and the tools. You need both to get the job done. You can have the tools and not have the knowledge, or the knowledge and not the tools. So it's right. You need both.
Yep. It's it's a lot of work, but I think it's worth it for sure. So.
Oh, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, hey, I don't want to keep you too much longer. I really do appreciate you coming on, spending some time with me this morning. This is
absolutely, Sean. I really appreciate you having me here. And like I said, I think what you're doing is really giving back to the industry, and just, keep pushing forward, because I'm really enjoying the content you're putting out. And, I'm excited to see or hear new guys that are on here and your interviews and everything else. So it's been fun watching you, man. So
hey, thank you. And we'll make sure to have you on again at some point or another for sure. So
I'll build some case studies, and then I'll have a little bit more to talk about. So
okay.
Okay, that's it for today. I want to thank everybody for listening and remind everyone to check the show notes for the links for everything that we mentioned, including where you can find Cody on YouTube, Facebook, and to get in touch with him in case you're interested in one of his pulse sensors. Other than that, we'll call this one a wrap, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.